KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your blood.
Keep following the leader.
Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Share my life, take me for what I am, 'cause I'll never change all my colors for you. Take my love, I'll never ask for too much, just all that you are and everything that you do. I don't really need to look very much further.
The voice. It never gets old. It never gets old. You are listening to one of the best to ever do it, Whitney Houston. I am so excited this hour to share with you a very special conversation I had with David Roberts, who is the author of a new book called Protecting Whitney. It comes out January 25th. We stretch out with David Roberts for most of this hour. But first things first, welcome to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to us in afternoon drive time in Los Angeles. We want to make sure that for everybody out there that you're being safe out there. We know that the wildfires in the Palisades are nothing to play with, and so make sure you follow the instructions of local authorities. Don't try to wait anything out. Those winds are whipping up there, and will continue to whip up well into tomorrow. And so make sure that you're staying safe out there. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Be sure to follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. That's DRNIIQ. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q and I pop right on up. I got to be the only Dr. Nii-Quartelai out there. If there's somebody else, it's fraud. So Dr. Nii-Q, and you can find me on all the socials. Also, download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And there we are. It's like magic. And certainly subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast and keep up on all the latest episodes, all the conversations that we're having with so many people who are shaping the culture, voices for the culture, voices for various movements. But now it's time for the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. And kicking us off, the Golden Arches don't seem to be bending toward diversity practices, at least more. NPR reporting that McDonald's says that it's revising some of its diversity practices. McDonald's says it's changing some of its inclusion standards, becoming the latest large company to announce it's rolling back some of its diversity practices. In its statement, the company said it will no longer set, quotes, aspirational representation goals. Huh? What's that? That's in your statement? Let me continue. In their statement, the company says it will no longer set aspirational representation goals and instead, quotes, focusing on continuing to embed inclusion practices that grow its business. Additionally, it is temporarily suspending external surveys to shift its focus internally. It's also changing the name of its diversity team to the Global Inclusion Team and retiring supply chains mutual commitment to DEI pledges in favor of more integrated discussions with suppliers about inclusion as it relates to business and performance. That's what the folks over at McDonald's had to say. They are the latest casualty in the movement to dismantle all things diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't see how you do that without dismantling all things that are related to racial justice. We'll continue to keep our eye on that. But you stay right there, because when we come forward, we're really gonna stretch out. I really enjoyed reading this book. I am not in the business of promoting stuff that I ain't feeling. So if I ain't feeling it, we're probably not going to have a conversation on this show telling you that you should go out and get it. And so you should know that I've had a chance to read this book. It is solid. And when we come forward, my conversation with David Roberts, the author of Protecting Whitney, is just as solid. Just as solid. It's a good read and it's a good interview. More when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580 in afternoon drive time.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has a program specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can
You are listening to
qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm, A-rated by the Better Business Bureau. Their award-winning team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to end your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other IRS actions. Make sure you're getting the best options to resolve your tax problems. Call the experts at Optima today for a free confidential consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
As we go a little something like this.
Hey, it is me, D.L. Hugo, and I am thrilled to be heard weekdays in my hometown on KBLA Talk 1580. So check out the D.L. Hugo Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. We got a whole lot to talk about, let me tell you. That's on the real.
We have no permanent friends or permanent enemies. Only permanent interests. As we effort to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and it's not just any old day where you have a chance to speak to someone who has bear witness to history, not just history, but a history maker. I'm talking about The Voice. And if you enjoy a good book and a good story as much as I enjoy a good book and a good story, then mark your calendars for January 25th, because that's when you get an opportunity to get your hands on Protecting Whitney. And here with us today, David Roberts, the author of Protecting Whitney, who actually happens to have been Whitney Houston's bodyguard. He's the real bodyguard. Can you believe that? Welcome, David Roberts.
Thank you, Delkin. Welcome to you too. Thank you so much.
It's so nice to have you here, and just speaking with you moments before we went on air. On top of the storied adventures that you write about in your book Protecting Whitney, coming out on January 25th, as I mentioned, you kind of sound like James Bond a little bit. What's that about? Where are you from?
I'm actually from Wales, from a farming community in what they call the Llyn Peninsula, which is in North Wales. That's where I originate from. I spent much of my working life in London before coming over to the United States, but I've got such a Brooklyn accent now. I've only been here 30 years, so it's difficult to get rid of that Brooklyn accent.
Don't get rid of a thing. Don't get rid of a thing. And congratulations on your new book. I've just got to share with folks a little bit of the beginning of the book, because it grabs you from the very beginning. You write, after spending so many years in angry contemplation, I found it cathartic to finally recall, relive, and recount my experiences, my life as Whitney Houston's bodyguard. I'm hoping that by sharing this story, you can get to know her more deeply and appreciate what we lost from this world when she died. I started by answering the question I am often asked. Yes, I was Whitney Houston's bodyguard. No, I'm not Kevin Costner. He's taller. Was real life with her like it was in the movie? Is life ever like it is in the movies? And sometimes yes, and sometimes no. Did I love her? Yes, but perhaps not the way you were thinking. Show me someone who didn't. Did I ever take a bullet for her? Again, perhaps not the way you were thinking, but I've realized all these many years later that yes, I really did. That is just the beginning of the book. I found it hard to walk away from it. There's so much there. Tell us, why did you decide to write this book now? Why now, after Whitney Houston has been gone for so many years?
Well, there are a number of reasons. I appeared in a documentary film, Can I Be Me? As a result of that, I was approached by an established author who said, I'd like to write your story. And so I met with the author concerned, and we discussed it, and a sample was produced which I could not agree with. I didn't like the interpretation that was being placed on it. As a result of which, I decided to do it myself, the seed having been sown as such. And yes, it was cathartic. And at the end of the day, it displays much of what has been anger for a long time over everything that had taken place. And I suppose at the end of the day, it is as much a panacea to me as it will be to, I can't imagine anybody, any lady in particular, not reading that book and identifying therein with something in their lives. I cannot imagine that.
Speaking of the anger in the book, you write about an experience you had with Whitney's throat doctor at the Grand Canyon in March 1995. Speaking of the anger, you write, the anger in me began to rise. I thought of the magnificent, exquisite voice that could reach into one's heart and soul with its range and depth, now in danger of being lost forever. I was furious at all those who facilitated Whitney's ability to do this to herself, who looked the other way because they saw her voice box as a cash machine, as her protection officer. It was my responsibility to keep her safe at all costs. And yet the good doctor was asking me to address a threat I had not been trained to handle. A bomb of a sniper's bullet could be avoided, deferred, or mitigated with accurate situational assessment. But this significantly more insidious threat, the terrorist that lurks within, was the most daunting. And as shock and ire gave way to resignation and resolve to do what had to be done, I was curious about one thing in particular. Doc, why are you telling me this? Looking at me pointedly, he said, because you're the only one I can speak to with sufficient common sense to get something done. What an awesome responsibility he had just laid firmly on my shoulders. He was not speaking to her husband, her manager, her father, her mother, or anyone else who would normally be expected to look out for her voice or her career. Just her bodyguard. Whoa. When I read that, I had to stand up and take a walk.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was in a plane when he said all that. I couldn't go anywhere. I was stuck. I was in a position that I had no alternative but to take it on. You can protect most people against most things. The one thing you can't protect them against is themselves. And that was actually what was confronting me at that time. I couldn't get, as you read through the book, you see there was a limited amount of help available or indeed willing to be imparted. So it became a tragedy in and of itself, even at that time, despite the fact that it continued for quite some time after that.
So it's interesting. I mean, there have been so many stories shared about the life and legacy of Whitney Houston, where a number of family members, a number of people in her quote unquote inner circle, have sort of positioned themselves as being a part of interventions along the way or over the years. At this point in your journey with her, it seems that wasn't your experience. Is that true?
Yes, intervention was out of the question, and the reason that was given was that to have done so would have destroyed her reputation and possibly her career. Notwithstanding that by that time, I think Aerosmith had come out with their individual drug problems. They'd gone into rehabilitation. They'd resolved their issues and were top of their rock and roll charts back again. So I didn't quite follow the logic of the argument until you personalize it and realize the people you're speaking to, they're going to pay their mortgages out of the voice box.
Wow. So I've got to ask you, how much of your story jives with the story of The Bodyguard. Inquiring minds want to know, is it like 50% your story? Is it 80% your story, or maybe just a little bit of your story? And who learned of your story well enough to make sure that the Bodyguard movie was more authentic than not to Whitney's experience?
The chronology is that 22 years prior to Mr. Costner getting the script, it was written with Steve McQueen and Diana Ross as the potential stars in that film. It then was purchased by Mr. Costner and developed accordingly. I think that in reality, the 2 hours and 10 minutes of that film, in major respects, encapsulated 6.5 years of our life together then. There are two major differences. One is the bullets are flying around. That did not happen. Neither did the love, sex, or everything else that goes in it. But you take those elements out of that film, and it becomes quite boring, really. But that was our life for 6.5 years prior to the release of that film. And I would always say, and it's more or less my personal opinion than anything else, Whitney actually wasn't acting. That was her. And where we had an issue when I saw it is that she selected the name that we used to house her in the hotels. So if you were to call the hotel and say, yeah, I'm Whitney's brother, put me through to her room. No. You'd have to say, I'm Whitney's brother, put me through to speak with Rachel Marron.
Really?
So
Whoa.
So that's how real that element of the film was. Yes.
So it wasn't hard for her to think of herself as Rachel, because that was basically, her pseudonym when she traveled.
That's right. That's what kept her safe.
Wow. So tell us, The Bodyguard was a blockbuster film. It took Whitney's career to the next level. The soundtrack to The Bodyguard was a chart popper, to say the least. Did Whitney have any idea that this film was going to be as big of a hit globally as it became?
I don't know if I can answer that question. I suspect not, because it was just another day at the office. For her, at the level of fame that she was at in those days, it was, again, routine. It's a film. Okay, let's move on. What are we doing the next show? That sort of thing. You never stood still. The pressure on this young lady who wanted to do nothing other than be normal is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Was unbelievable. The success of this film raised that threshold beyond easy support and compliance. And there was a lot of compliance necessary. Contracts were signed, songs had to be sung, people had to be spoken to, concerts had to be sung. And I think shortly after that, we started a tour that was scheduled to be 790 days long.
Wow.
We never completed that because you've seen the video to the song "I Will Always Love You," right?
Yes.
That video was captured in an old cinema in Hollywood. We were there for that purpose. Coming out of that recording, she took me by the arm. She said, "David, I'm pregnant." Yes. So even before this thing had come off all the processing that they do to make films, she was already with child and preparing to be a mother. So you throw on top of that the success, resounding success, probably unparalleled, if not unprecedented success of a single film like that, on top of becoming a new mother. And you've got a lot of pressure, right? How do you through that sustain any level of normality as an individual?
And maintain safety. When we come forward, I want to talk about the fans, or as you put it, the fanatics. In the book, you write, quote, the word fan is the derivative of the Latin word fanaticus, meaning insanely but divinely inspired. From it, we get the word fanatic. And as I was coming to realize, there was a thin dividing line between harmless fans, which those guys tailing us claim to be, and fans who might be dangerous with intentions of carrying out some crazed obsession. If you let any fan, however, seemingly innocent, get through your guards, they could turn out to be a killer. The golden rules were never lose sight of your principle and never let anyone get close enough to touch her. When we come forward, I want to learn from you whether or not there are any crazy fans that you remember from your days protecting Whitney. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with David Roberts, the author of Protecting Whitney.
If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered about issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, you tuned into the right place. A More Perfect Union continues when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know from BIN News. Mandatory evacuations are underway in Los Angeles as the Palisades fire grows to over 200 acres. Firefighters warn many homes are under immediate threat amid 40-mile-per-hour winds and dry conditions. Wall Street is closing sharply lower as new economic data raised concerns about potential Federal Reserve rate cuts this year. The FBI says there's been more criminal conduct by Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams, but he says otherwise.
Even Ray Charles can see what's going on. I've said over and over again, I've done nothing wrong. Let the attorneys do that. I have to run this city.
The new filing does not provide specifics, but Adams has pleaded not guilty in a 5-count indictment charging him with accepting luxury travel in exchange for political favors. And President Biden plans to ban offshore drilling on 625 million acres along the Atlantic and Pacific coast, citing environmental risk. The move mirrors Obama's 2016 protections for coastal areas. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
The 405 is just a mess right now. This is northbound out of Culver City, leaving the 90 extra busy because of the closure in Pacific
You've been listening to
of Pacific Coast Highway. That is shut down in both directions between the 10 freeway and Las Flores and Malibu. But let's head back to the 405. Northbound slowing from just about Culver Boulevard. You're on the brakes all the way to Nordhoff and North Hills. And southbound slowing, loading up in West LA from Santa Monica Boulevard all the way back towards Palo Verde in Long Beach. Now, the 10 freeway is closed. This is westbound at Lincoln. They will divert you off of the freeway at Lincoln. They don't want anybody heading into Pacific Coast Highway. Eastbound slowing for the 10 starts at about Cloverfield, taking you all the way to the 5 in Boyle Heights.
Your local Staples has hot deals and super low prices throughout the store and everything for your business. And right now at Staples, save up to $175 off your print order. Exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details. Ends 2/1. Plus, save even more with the Easy Rewards program at Staples.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
There was a time Los Angeles did not have an NFL franchise. Now the city has 2 teams in the NFL playoffs. For 22 years, between 1994 and 2016, the NFL went about its business without a team in LA. The Raiders moved back to Oakland, and the Rams went to St. Louis. The Rams came back to LA in 2016. The Chargers left San Diego for LA in 2017. Since the Rams and Chargers have been in LA, the city has had 2 NFL teams in the same playoffs twice. The Rams and Chargers made the playoffs in 2018 and this year. New York and LA, the only cities with 2 NFL franchises, have never had their teams face each other in a Super Bowl. Even if the Rams and Chargers don't make it to the Super Bowl this year, the NFL is fully aware that the LA market is still strong. LA will never go 22 years again without an NFL team. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your blood.
Follow the leader.
Following the leader.
Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
The holidays can be a time of increased stress for those struggling with opioid or stimulant addiction. They can also be a time for pause, reflection, opportunity, and new beginnings. This holiday season, choose treatment and recovery. Embrace the company of family and friends and create special moments. Find a proven opioid or stimulant addiction treatment provider near you at choosechangeca.org.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hit me!
National news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to A More Perfect Union in afternoon drive time, and I'm delighted to be talking to author David Roberts. He's the author of the new book coming out on January 25th. It's called Protecting Whitney. And all I'm saying to all the Whitney fans out there, run, don't walk to go get this book. There are so many anecdotes, and if you're ever wondering what it might feel like to be a fly on the wall, traveling around the world with The Voice, Whitney Houston, this book really delivers that experience. And I'm so glad that we have the author with us here today. David, I've got to ask you about the fans, right? In your book, you talk about how there's a thin line between fan and fanatic. We know in the movie The Bodyguard, there was a fan turned fanatic. Are there any fanatical fans that you remember from your days protecting Whitney Houston?
Oh yes, indeed. I think one in particular is identified in the book from Newark, New Jersey. And ultimately, he threatened family members. He especially threatened Whitney. Many of the fans are obsessed with the fact that they were either a long-lost sibling who'd been cast out by Mrs. Houston. They were already married. They were They were the ones responsible for Whitney's baby to come. And there's a lot of crazies out there. There was another chap who, in not only following us about the country as investigations transpired, was actually going thereafter to Mariah Carey's. She has a children's home, and he was there going to compromise her in the same manner. Fortunately, we had the police meet him when he thought he was meeting me, and that was the end of that. But there are many of them, and not just here in America. There's another one in Australia who was going to get up during the encore of Greatest Love of All and take Whitney from his seat, which he'd already bought and gave us the number, to meet his dead mother.
Oh, wow.
So that they could all be together for eternity.
Yikes.
And this is the guy who's sending socks and underwear soiled and so on and so forth. And he did. He turned up at the last show, and for the encore, he was there. He was surrounded by police officers in plain clothes. He had no idea they were there. And he was totally unemotive. He did not move. He did not make any expressions. He just sat there. All the fans are going crazy. He sat there. Even if he hadn't written and specified his intent, to see him in that manner in a crowd of excited people, totally impassive, that would have honed everybody's attention on him. That's dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yikes. It sounds really dangerous and really scary. And it's just a little taste of so many stories that you feature in your new book, Protecting Whitney, which is available on January 25th. There are a cast of characters that have been in Whitney Houston's orbit for some time. And there are so many names, so many different names that are peppered throughout this book. One name that comes to mind is Robin Crawford. You talk about Robin as somebody who was very protective of Whitney, at times sort of making your job of protecting her more difficult, trying to keep you at bay. Talk to me about the nature of Whitney and Robin's relationship. Did it feel more like, being protected by a best friend, more being protected by a lover, maybe a little bit of both?
At the time, it was clearly a best friend. They were tight. The two of them were very tight together. They interacted with each other. They were all with each other all the time. Robin resented Whitney getting close to anybody else, and she reflected the resentment, which you sit there, you stand there, there's a problem developing here. Robin is a beautiful, beautiful woman, strong woman. In fact, if she was security trained as such, she would be an Amazon. She was incredible. She did a lot of good for Whitney, and she did a lot of bad, but that's not exclusive to her. Not exclusive to her at all. Her love for Whitney, unimpeachable. Nobody could have loved Whitney as much as Robin loved Whitney. Nobody.
David,
in her own way, yes.
David, when you say she did a lot of good for Whitney and a lot of bad for Whitney, are you alluding to what running errands for Whitney, which might have included facilitating the use of drugs? What are you alluding to?
Well, let me qualify that in as much as saying this, and I think I said it in the book at least once there. For the whole of the time that I was with Whitney Houston, I never once saw her imbibe a narcotic, unless you consider a bottle of Heineken and a cigarette a narcotic. That is all I ever saw her do. For the whole time I was with her, she never did anything like that in front of me. By her own admission thereafter, she was. The reason that I said that about the bad for Robin is that her attitude towards Whitney angered other people in that orbit, and she was perceived more as not an asset but a problem. And that reflected in our day-to-day living and everything else. It impacted Robin, it impacted Whitney, it impacted everybody in the environment. So Robin was I suppose, a seed. And from that seed grew something that wasn't always good.
But how much of the upset and displeasure that folks had with Robin, how much of that was just sort of her attitude and just sort of the way that she moved and how protective she was of Whitney versus, her identity? Were people feel some kind of way that, Robin, sort of presented maybe as lesbian? I'm not sure if she identified at the time, but were folks uncomfortable with that being so close, somebody being a lesbian, or at least lesbian presenting, being that close to Whitney?
You're talking about protective. The issue became possessive, not protective per se. Yes, she was protective of it, but she was very possessive of Whitney. Nobody could have access to Whitney without Robin, and then that was all controlled. Bear in mind, most of the people at that level in Whitney's working environment had no experience in what they were doing. They were her friends. They were her friends. They were her family. That was it. Nobody had the training. Very few people had the training. So the executives, some of them did, for sure. But she was surrounded by people who were ostensibly her friends or family in an environment that was forever escalating in terms of her fame. And it was tough for everyone. Many of them, as you see, couldn't handle it, either as individuals or on her behalf. And that was where the problem was.
Yeah. Before Bobby, because again, what period of time were you serving as her bodyguard?
From 1988 through to 1995.
Okay, so from 1988 to 1995. And so you were her bodyguard sort of before Bobby Brown and after she had married Bobby Brown, correct?
That's true, yes.
And so, talk to us about their relationship, because I think the public has a perception that, especially towards the end of their relationship, that it was a bit erratic and perhaps maybe even unhealthy. What did you observe in terms of their relationship?
We were sitting in, I think it's TGIF in Atlanta, Peachtree. And there was myself, Robin, Sylvia, and Whitney. And Sylvia and Robin went off somewhere. She said, David, I've got to tell you something. I said, go ahead. Bobby asked me to marry him. So, right. It surprised me, but at the same token, it didn't. They were fanatically in love, without a shadow of a doubt. Nobody could say any different. The fact that Bobby had too much of it outside the sphere of just Whitney was another issue. But by the same token, she loved him, period. You know, in the book, the first time I met him, he got off a bus to go to her birthday party in 1989. Before the evening was over, they were dancing, they were having fun, and I didn't see him for a long time after that, because at that time, of course, she was still with Eddie Murphy as a boyfriend. Mm-hmm. So it was sometime after that he came back on the scene.
Wow, so many great stories. I mean, again, if you're looking for that fly on the wall experience between the years of 1988 and 1995, being in the room with Whitney Houston, then you got to check out this book, Protecting Whitney. It comes out January 25th. More with David Roberts, the author of Protecting Whitney and also former bodyguard of Whitney Houston. When we come forward, this is a KBLA exclusive, and you're listening to A More Perfect Union right here on KBLA Talk 1580 in Drive Time.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors.
Use as directed. Vapo Stick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max use for adults only.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline nasal spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultra-fine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Breeze. As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust Febreze car vent clips, featuring 3 distinct intensity settings, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing. Which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar!
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and you working to build a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union in afternoon drive time right here on KBLA Talk 1580. I feel like I could go a whole nother hour and then some talking to David Roberts. He's the author of Protecting Whitney. I'm a Whitney Houston fan. One of the things I often say, I often quote Whitney Elizabeth Houston when she said, teach them well and let them lead the way. I'm taking out some lyrics from The Greatest Love of All, which, as I understand it, was one of Whitney Houston's favorite songs. As an educator and journalist, that particularly means a lot to me. But this book is going to mean a lot to a lot of Whitney Houston fans who are going to appreciate the little anecdotes and stories in this book. The Lexington incident. You write about the Lexington incident in the book. In broad strokes, what do you want to share about the Lexington incident?
It was my first exposure to the most racist, evil scenario that I had ever encountered. And it was, for those three boys, a shame for them that I was there. But by the same token, I have every confidence that the one whose face was split from his eye to his ear looks in the mirror every morning and he remembers. He should remember, never forget what he did. And nor the others either. Of course, I too have scars from that incident, you know.
And for people who are less familiar, tell us about what the Lexington incident was.
Oh, we just come back from, we were on tour in Lexington, and we were invited to attend a boxing match, to a visual boxing match in a club. I think it was Mike Tyson or Evander Holyfield, one of the two. And we came back from there. We were staying in the concierge floor of that particular hotel, and there was a concierge lounge where our party walked past, and as a group, as it were. And then the next thing, before we entered the room, her room, there was a scream from her aunt. I said, "David, they're hitting Michael." So I run back there, and at this stage, Michael is, that's Whitney's brother, was on the floor. The heavier, fatter chap was lying across his legs, and a younger, more athletic chap was standing over him, punching his face. So I ran at him and hit him. He flew off the floor, over a sofa, landed on a marble table. I really don't know whether it was my fist or the table that did the damage to him, but he was out of the game after that. I was then remonstrating with the fat one, and all of a sudden a bottle broke on the back of my head. So as the beer and the blood flowed down, I turned around, and there's the little one of the three there. So I picked him up by the throat, and he said, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I didn't do it." And I look over, and there's Whitney. She had thrown the bottle, and her aim was so good that if my head had not been in the way, the fat one, he would have been seriously injured. Yes, she threw. You don't mess with Whitney Houston's family or friends. You just don't do that.
You just don't do that.
She's a tiger. She will take you down.
Well, apparently she is dangerous with a bottle in her hand.
Oh,
it's like, who's the bodyguard in that scenario? Just another really riveting story. You have written an incredible book where you share a lot of truths from your perspective. And I think a lot of people are going to enjoy reading this. Fans of Whitney. I think there's a lot to learn about her in this book. And I think you do it honorably. And so thank you so much for spending some time with us. I want to encourage all of our leaders, learners, and listeners to, again, run, don't walk. Mark your calendars right now. January 25th. Go out and pick up Protecting Whitney by author David Roberts. Thank you, sir. And wasn't that a riveting conversation? I mean, I enjoyed it. Did y'all enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it? Oh my goodness, there's so many things that we just didn't even get to. And so again, go out and check out that book, Protecting Whitney, by David Roberts. Comes out January 25th. Before we let you go, we just want to give you an update on the wildfires in Los Angeles. About an hour ago, the LA Times reporting that Governor Gavin Newsom called the Palisades fire a, quote, hell of a way to start a new year as he watched the towering black plumes of smoke rise while speaking at a news conference at Will Rogers State Beach. He described seeing the impact of these swirling winds and embers and the number of structures that are destroyed. When visiting the fire zone earlier this afternoon, he urged all residents to heed the evacuation orders. We are echoing that. Please heed the evacuation orders. Newsom was scheduled to be in the Coachella Valley to speak this afternoon at an event with Biden, but he rerouted to the Pacific Palisades after the event was canceled because of the weather. And so our thoughts are with everybody in the area. Again, heed those evacuation warnings. We'll have to leave it there. My thanks to the entire village. Helps us produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiley. Our sound engineer, Andy. Our producing team, Kim and Faraji. And, of course, each and every one of you. Be sure to spread the word. A More Perfect Union is in afternoon drive time weekdays, Monday through Thursday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific. That's 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. And if you can't join us at that time, make sure you subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never, ever, ever miss an episode. Remember, do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and you've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.